Uhuru. Thank you so much. Next up, Frank Lawrence from the Julian Assange Defense Committee.
Julian Assange was put into a position where he had to plead guilty to the crime of journalism to avoid spending the rest of his life in a supermax prison in the US. He'd already been persecuted for 14 years, and he'd already spent 5 years in a maximum security prison in the UK. Joe Biden proclaimed that we have freedom of the press and that journalism is not a crime. Evidently, it is a crime if you're exposed to the world US war crimes and US misdeeds. The Uhuru Three, Jesse Neville, Penny Hess, and Chairman O'Malley, criticized US policy towards Ukraine and Russia. Right. They characterized the Ukraine conflict as a US provoked proxy war against Russia. We have freedom of speech in this country as long as you don't criticize and expose the lies of the US warmongering policies. The Uhuru Three met and communicated with some Russians. We have freedom of association as long as we don't associate with people from countries that the US government considers our enemies. The US government has no right to tell the Uhuru Three who their enemies are or who their friends should be. That's right. Russia is not their enemy. Right. China is not their enemy. Iran is not their enemy. Venezuela is not their enemy. And Cuba is not their enemy. And while this charade has been taking place over the last couple of years, what has the Biden administration been doing? It has caused and supported genocide in Palestine. It is principally responsible for the destruction of Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in Ukraine unnecessarily. This war could have been avoided in December 2021 if the US had acknowledged the security concerns of Russia and told Russia that Ukraine will not be in NATO. Ukraine will never end up being in NATO. And while this charade has been taking place, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of a nuclear war. All it takes is a mistake, a miscommunication, or a decision by a demented president, and all hell could break loose. And there are even some in Washington, D.C., who believe that we could survive a nuclear war and the U.S. would come out on top. And the death of millions of people is a price to be paid for US capitalism to run supreme and for US hegemony to continue. So the irony is that the 3 people who are in court today to be sentenced before a judge are Jesse Neville, Penny Hess, and Chairman O'Malley. It should be Joe Biden, Antony Blinken, and Sullivan who should be in court. They will never be held to account, just like George W. Bush it wasn't held to account. The Uhuru Three are heroes. They will go down in the history books. And I hope Joe Biden will go down as the villain of the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uhuru. Next up,